The dusty plaza of Cedar Ridge baked under the merciless August sun, its packed earth as hard and unforgiving as the lives scratched out in this mountain settlement. Cowboys lounged against hitching posts, their spurs catching glints of light. Merchants hawked their wares from storefronts bleached pale by weather and time. Women in calico dresses hurried past, parasols tilted against both sun and the crude stares of idle men. Into this ordinary afternoon walked Martha Coleman, though folks called her the mountain medicine woman when they needed her help, and worse names when they didn't. She stood tall for a woman, her dark skin gleaming with perspiration, her homespun dress practical rather than pretty. The leather satchel slung across her shoulder bulged with mountain herbs and roots, the tools of her trade. She stopped dead center of the plaza, her eyes scanning the gathered men until they locked onto a lone figure sitting on the saloon steps. The stranger was new to town, a drifter by the look of his trail-worn clothes and the easy way his hand rested near his holstered Colt. Unlike the others, he hadn't joined in the snickers and whispers that followed her passage. Martha squared her shoulders and strode directly toward him. The plaza fell silent, sensing drama about to unfold. She halted 3 feet from the cowboy, close enough that he had to tilt his head back to meet her gaze from his seated position. "You," she said, her voice carrying across the square like a rifle shot. "Tonight, you're coming to my bed." The silence shattered into guffaws and catcalls. Men slapped their thighs, tears of mirth streaming down weathered faces. Someone whistled shrilly. Another man shouted something crude about knowing one's place, but the cowboy didn't laugh. His gray eyes, the color of winter storms, studied her with an intensity that made the laughter around them seem suddenly hollow. He saw what the others missed, the tremor in her clenched fists, the desperate calculation in her stance, the way she held herself like someone preparing for a last stand. "Ma'am," he said quietly, his voice a low rumble that somehow cut through the cacophony. "That's a mighty bold proposition for a Sunday afternoon." "I'm not proposing anything improper," Martha replied, lifting her chin higher. "I need a husband, legal and proper. You look like a man who might listen to reason before you listen to the fools laughing behind you." The laughter stuttered and died. This was different. This wasn't some addled woman making a scene. This was business, serious business, and in Cedar Ridge, business involving marriage and property was never a laughing matter. The cowboy unfolded himself from the steps, rising to his full height. He topped her by a good 4 inches, his broad shoulders blocking out the sun. "Name Samuel Hawkins," he said, touching the brim of his hat. "Most folks call me Sam. And you are?" "Martha Coleman. My father was Josiah Coleman." She watched recognition flicker across his features. Everyone knew of Josiah Coleman, the freedman who'd somehow secured 1,200 acres of silver-rich mountain land back when such things were still possible. The man who died 3 months past under circumstances that had tongues wagging from here to Denver. "I heard about your father," Sam said carefully. "Also heard you might be having some trouble with his holdings." Martha's laugh was bitter as alkali water. "Trouble, that's one word for it." She pulled a folded document from her satchel, the official seal visible even from a distance. "Territorial court says I have 30 days to marry or forfeit everything my father built. 23 days have already passed." "And the 3 men who were courting you?" Sam asked, demonstrating he'd been in town long enough to hear the gossip. "All 3 discovered pressing business elsewhere. One left for California, another remembered family obligations in Missouri. The 3rd..." She shrugged. "The 3rd was honest enough to admit someone made it worth his while to disappear." Sam's eyes narrowed. "Someone like Mayor Aldrich?" Martha neither confirmed nor denied, but her silence spoke volumes. Mayor Aldrich owned half the businesses in Cedar Ridge and had his fingers in the other half. He'd been circling Josiah Coleman's land like a vulture for years. "Why me?" Sam asked. "You don't know anything about me." "I know you've been in town 3 days. I know Aldrich hired you to keep the peace during the upcoming cattle drives. I know you haven't taken his money yet, which means you're either honest or calculating." Either way, you're not in his pocket. Martha's voice dropped lower. And I know you're the kind of man who sits quiet and watches while others make fools of themselves. My father taught me to read people. Mr. Hawkins, you're my best chance. Sam studied her for a long moment. Around them, the crowd pressed closer, eager to catch every word of this unusual negotiation. What are you offering? Partnership, Martha said simply. Marriage in name, legal and binding. I keep my land and my father's legacy. You get 20% of the silver profits and a place to hang your hat when you're not chasing cattle thieves. After a year, if you want to move on, we'll arrange a quiet divorce. No harm to either of us. And if I say no? Martha's shoulders sagged for just a moment before she forced them straight again. Then in 7 days, Aldrich takes everything my father bled for. The land, the silver claims, the house my mother died in. All of it. Her voice hardened. And I'll spend the rest of my days knowing I could have stopped it if I'd been brave enough to ask a stranger for help. Sam removed his hat, running fingers through sweat-dampened hair. The crowd held its breath. This was better than any traveling show. A desperate woman, a mysterious drifter, and stakes higher than most folks saw in a lifetime. When? He asked finally. Hope flared in Martha's eyes like struck flint. Tomorrow morning, Judge Peters rides circuit back through here on Tuesday. We could— Tonight, Sam interrupted. Reverend Mills can perform the ceremony. If we're doing this, we're doing it before anyone has time to interfere. Martha blinked, clearly not expecting such swift agreement. You mean— I mean what I said. But first, you and I need to talk. Privately. He offered his arm, a gesture so unexpectedly gentlemanly that several onlookers gasped. Shall we? Martha hesitated only a moment before placing her hand on his arm. Together they walked through the parting crowd, leaving behind a plaza buzzing with speculation and disbelief. As they passed the general store, Sam caught sight of Mayor Aldrich watching from the window, his face twisted with calculation and growing anger. He's not going to let this happen easily, Sam murmured. I know, Martha replied. That's why I chose a man wearing a gun. They made their way to the small church at the edge of town, its whitewashed walls and simple cross a stark contrast to the drama unfolding. Inside, the afternoon light filtered through plain glass windows, casting long shadows across wooden pews worn smooth by years of worship and worry. Now, Sam said, settling onto a back pew and gesturing for her to join him. Tell me the real story. All of it. Martha sat, her back straight as a ramrod. My father was born into slavery in Virginia, fought for the Union, saved his pay, came west when the war ended. He knew letters and numbers, could read contracts when most men just made their mark. That's how he got the land. Previous owner died owing taxes, and Papa was the only one who understood the legal notice posted in Denver. He paid the back taxes and filing fees before anyone else figured out what was happening. Smart man. Too smart for his own good, some would say. Martha's fingers twisted in her lap. He taught me everything. How to read law books, how to figure accounts, how to assay silver ore, how to use these mountains to heal folks when the doctor's medicine failed. He said knowledge was the only protection we had, but not protection enough. No, Martha agreed softly. He started getting sick last winter. Confusion, trembling hands, seeing things that weren't there. Doc Morrison said it was mountain fever, prescribed tonics. Papa got worse. By the end, he didn't even recognize me. Sam's expression darkened. That doesn't sound like mountain fever. No, it doesn't. But Doc Morrison is Mayor Aldrich's cousin. Martha reached into her satchel again, pulling out a small glass vial. I found this hidden in Papa's medicine chest after he died. Had a chemist in Denver test the residue. Mercury, enough to drive a man mad, if given slowly over time. Sam took the vial, holding it up to the light. You have proof Morrison poisoned your father? Proof enough for me. Not enough for a court that would take a white doctor's word over mine. Martha's voice turned fierce. But if I can keep the land, I can keep fighting. There are others who've suffered under Aldrich's rule. Together, we might build something better. Sam handed back the vial. "And you trust me with all this? A stranger who drifts into town wearing a gun? My father used to say desperation makes philosophers of us all." Martha met his gaze steadily. "Besides, you're not just any drifter. I've heard the stories. Samuel Hawkins, the man who faced down the Wallace gang in Amarillo, the one who negotiated peace between the cattlemen and farmers in Nebraska. You solve problems. Mr. Hawkins, well, I'm offering you a chance to solve mine." Sam leaned back, the pew creaking under his weight. "Those stories get bigger with each telling. I'm just a man who prefers talk to gunplay when possible." "Then talk to me. What made you consider my offer?" For the first time, something personal flickered across Sam's weathered features. "My own father lost his farm to legal trickery and powerful men. I was too young to help then. Maybe I'm not too old to help now." They sat in companionable silence for a moment, two strangers bound by necessity and a growing sense of shared purpose. Finally, Sam stood, offering his hand to help her rise. "Let's find Reverend Mills," he said. "Best get this done before Aldrich figures out how to stop us." As they left the church, Martha felt a strange mix of hope and trepidation. She'd rolled the dice on this taciturn stranger, staking everything on her ability to read character in a man's eyes. Time would tell if her gamble would pay off. Behind them, the sun sank toward the mountains, painting Cedar Ridge in shades of gold and shadow. And somewhere in those shadows, Mayor Aldrich was already making plans of his own. Martha Coleman had learned early that a woman alone in the mountains needed more than courage. She needed skills that could mean the difference between life and death. As she led Sam Hawkins up the winding path to her cabin, she pointed out the markers most folks would miss: the white oak whose bark eased fever, the underground spring that never froze even in the deepest winter, the rocky outcrop where rattlesnakes sunned themselves in the morning. "Your father taught you well," Sam observed, stepping carefully around a patch of poison ivy she'd indicated with a casual gesture. "He taught me to survive." Martha corrected. "There's a difference between living and surviving, Mr. Hawkins, though I suppose you'd know that, being a traveling man yourself." The cabin appeared through the pines like something grown from the mountain itself, logs weathered silver gray, a stone chimney sending up a thin thread of smoke, a covered porch that wrapped around two sides. It wasn't grand, but it was solid, built to withstand winters that could kill the unprepared. "Papa built this with his own hands," Martha said, unable to keep the pride from her voice. "Said a man's home should be like his word, strong enough to weather any storm." Inside, the cabin revealed careful organization and unexpected comfort. Shelves lined one wall, filled with glass jars containing herbs, roots, and tinctures. Books, more than most folks saw in a lifetime, occupied another wall. A medical journal lay open on the rough-hewn table beside mortar and pestle. Evidence of work interrupted. "You practice medicine," Sam said, not quite making it a question. "I practice healing," Martha replied, hanging her satchel on a peg by the door. "Medicine is what Doc Morrison practices, charging folks $1 for sugar water and calling it tonic. I learned from my father, who learned from the Cherokee who used to pass through these mountains, and from these." She gestured to the books. "Papa couldn't afford to send me to school, so he brought school to me." Sam picked up a well-worn volume. "Gray's Anatomy. This is medical school material. Knowledge doesn't care about the color of the hands holding it," Martha said simply. She moved to the stove, adding wood to the dying fire. "Coffee, or would you prefer tea? I have a blend that helps with trail dust and tired bones." "Coffee, if it's no trouble." Sam settled into one of the two chairs by the table, his movements careful, as if he wasn't quite sure of his welcome despite their strange agreement. As Martha worked, Sam studied the legal document she'd shown him in town. "This territorial statute," he said slowly. "It only applies to unmarried women inheriting property over 1,000 acres. Very specific. Very convenient for those wanting to grab land from widows and spinsters." Martha agreed, setting a steaming mug before him. "The law passed 2 years ago. Funny how Papa started getting sick not long after." And these 3 men who courted you, tell me about them." Martha settled into the opposite chair, cradling her own mug. Thomas Garrett owned a small ranch north of town. Good man, honest, but with 3 children to feed and a mortgage coming due. Someone paid off his mortgage and suggested he take his family to California for their health. Generous benefactor. Indeed. Then came William Chen. His father was Chinese, mother Mexican. Worked the railroad camps as a cook. We'd been friends for years. He left a note saying he'd gotten word of his brother needing help in Missouri. Never even said goodbye. Pain flickered across her features. I think that hurt worst of all. We'd known each other since we were children. And the third, Patrick O'Brien, newcomer, arrived just last month. Charming Irish fellow with grand plans for starting a freight business. Courted me properly for all of 2 weeks before Mayor Aldrich offered him a partnership in his existing freight lines. Patrick at least had the decency to tell me to my face that his business prospects mattered more than... She gestured vaguely. Whatever this might have been. Sam sipped his coffee. Processing. So Aldrich systematically removed every potential husband. He must want this land badly. There's silver in these mountains, Martha said. Papa found the vein 5 years ago, but kept it quiet, filing the claims under different names, working it slow. He figured flooding the market would only bring trouble. But somehow, Aldrich found out. How much silver are we talking about? Martha rose, moving to what looked like a simple wooden panel in the wall. Her fingers found hidden catches, and the panel swung open to reveal a cavity. She withdrew a chunk of ore that gleamed with telltale threads of white metal. A sayer in Denver said it's the richest ore he's seen outside of the Comstock, she said, placing it on the table. This land could make a man wealthy beyond imagining, or destroy him with greed. Sam hefted the ore, whistling low. And you trust me with this knowledge? You already agreed to marry me, Martha pointed out. If you meant harm, knowing about the silver won't make it worse. Besides, a wife shouldn't keep secrets from her husband, even in a business arrangement. About that, Sam set down the ore. We should discuss terms. You mentioned 20% of net profits from any silver extracted. Martha finished. Plus room and board when you're in town. Access to the mineral rights if you want to work a claim yourself, though I'd ask you to be discreet, and a clean divorce after 1 year if either party wishes it. What about living arrangements? Color touched Martha's cheeks for the first time. The cabin has a loft. You're welcome to it. Or there's a bunkhouse out back Papa built for the miners he sometimes hired. As for other expectations, this is business. Mr. Hawkins, I'm not asking you to play husband beyond what's legally necessary to secure my inheritance. Sam nodded slowly. Fair enough. And your enemies? Because Aldrich won't stop just because you found a husband. That's why I chose a man who wears his gun like he knows how to use it, Martha said frankly. I can fight with laws and papers and healing arts, but sometimes... She glanced at his holstered Colt. Sometimes the law needs backing of a different kind. Before Sam could respond, hoofbeats thundered outside. Martha tensed, moving instinctively toward the rifle mounted above the door. But Sam raised a hand, moving to the window with practiced caution. 6 riders, he reported quietly. Wearing dusters, could be innocent travelers, but innocent travelers don't ride in formation. Martha finished. She joined him at the window. That's Jake Morrison in front, the doctor's brother. Works as Aldrich's foreman. Sam's hand settled on his gun. Stay inside. You'll do nothing alone, Martha interrupted. This is my land, my fight. She took down the rifle, checking it with practiced ease. Though I appreciate the protective instinct, it suggests I chose well. They stepped onto the porch together as the riders reined up just outside what Sam now recognized as strategically placed boulders. Natural cover that could shelter defenders while leaving approaches exposed. Josiah Coleman had indeed been a careful man. Martha, Jake Morrison called out, touching his hat brim in mock courtesy. Heard some disturbing news in town. Something about you making unseemly propositions to strangers. Nothing unseemly about a woman securing her future, Martha replied evenly. Mr. Hawkins and I will be married tonight. You can report that to whoever's interested. Morrison's eyes shifted to Sam, taking in the tied-down holster, the steady stance, the way his hand rested casual-like near his gun. Don't believe I know you, friend. Name's Hawkins, and I'm not your friend. Sam's voice carried the kind of quiet authority that made smart men reconsider their plans. The lady and I have business in town. You boys planning to be a problem? No problem, Morrison said after a pause. Just wanted to make sure Martha here wasn't being taken advantage of. A lot of drifters come through making promises they don't keep. I keep my promises, Sam said. All of them, including the ones that involve protecting what's mine. The lady's agreed to be my wife. That makes her welfare my business. Anyone has issue with that can take it up with me directly. The two men locked eyes. A silent conversation of threat and counter-threat. Finally, Morrison wheeled his horse around. We'll be seeing you. Hawkins, Cedar Ridge is a small town. Everyone knows everyone else's business. Then everyone will know to leave my wife in peace. Sam replied. They watched the riders disappear into the gathering dusk. Only when the hoofbeats faded did Martha lower the rifle. They'll be back, she said. Yes, Sam agreed. But not tonight. Tonight, we make this legal. Tomorrow, we start fighting back. He glanced at her. You realize what you've started? This won't end with a simple wedding ceremony. Martha's chin lifted. My father spent his life building something in these mountains. I won't let greedy men tear it down. If that means war, then so be it. Sam studied her, this remarkable woman who mixed medicines and quoted law, who handled a rifle like a soldier and spoke of war with quiet determination. Your father raised a warrior. He raised a survivor, Martha corrected. But maybe, with the right partner, I can be something more. She moved toward the door, then paused. We should head to town soon. Reverend Mills goes to bed early, and we'll need witnesses. Who can we trust? Martha smiled for the first time since they'd met. Mrs. Chen, William's mother. She's angrier about her son's sudden departure than I am. And old Pete Winters. He's been in these mountains longer than anyone. Remembers when Aldrich was just a 2-bit card sharp. They'll stand witness. As they prepared to leave, Sam making sure both his guns were loaded, Martha gathering documents and a small purse of coins. She paused. Mr. Hawkins, Sam, I need you to know something. I don't expect this to be forever. When the year's up, when my land is secure, you're free to go. No hard feelings, no questions asked. Sam adjusted his hat, checking the sight lines from the porch one more time. Let's worry about getting through tonight first. Tomorrow has a way of changing plans. They set off down the mountain as darkness fell. Two unlikely allies bound by necessity and a growing respect. Behind them, Martha's cabin stood strong against the night, while ahead, the lights of Cedar Ridge promised either salvation or a reckoning. Only time would tell which. The little church at the edge of Cedar Ridge had witnessed its share of unions, joyful ceremonies between young lovers, practical arrangements between widowers and spinsters, and everything in between. But Reverend Mills would later say he'd never performed a wedding quite like the one between Martha Coleman and Samuel Hawkins. They arrived just as the last light faded from the western sky, accompanied by Mrs. Chen and Pete Winters. Mrs. Chen, a tiny woman whose steel-gray hair was pulled back in a severe bun, carried herself with the dignity of someone who'd survived far worse than small-town prejudice. Pete, grizzled and bent from decades of prospecting, leaned heavily on a walking stick, but his eyes were sharp as a hawk's. You sure about this, Martha girl? Pete asked as they gathered in the church vestibule. Marriage ain't something to enter lightly, even when it's for practical purposes. I'm sure. Pete, Martha replied, adjusting the simple lace collar she'd added to her dress, her one concession to the occasion. Papa always said when you're caught between a rock and a hard place, sometimes you have to make your own path. Mrs. Chen took Martha's hands in her weathered ones. Your father would be proud. You fight smart, like he taught you. Her voice carried a slight accent, remnants of the Chinese tones she'd never quite lost. My William. He would be here if he could. I know this. Sam stood apart, watching the interactions with interest. He'd changed into his best shirt, still trail-worn but clean, and had even trimmed his beard. The guns remained, though he'd made an effort to wear his coat in a way that made them less obvious. Reverend Mills appeared from his study, a thin man whose perpetual stoop made him seem older than his 50 years. Well now, he said, taking in the small gathering. This is irregular. Usually like to have couples come for counseling first, discuss the sacred nature of the matrimonial bonds. Reverend, Sam interrupted quietly. We appreciate your concern, but time is a factor. The lady's inheritance depends on her marital status, and there are those who'd prefer she remain unmarried. Mills's eyes sharpened. He might preach about heavenly rewards, but he lived in Cedar Ridge and knew the earthly realities. I see, and you, Mr. Hawkins, Samuel Hawkins. Mr. Hawkins, you enter this union freely, no coercion. Sam's smile was dry. Unless you count the coercion of conscience. Reverend, the lady needs help, and I'm in a position to provide it. Mills looked between them, then sighed. Very well. Let's proceed to the altar. The ceremony itself was simple. They stood before the modest wooden cross, candlelight casting dancing shadows on the walls. Martha had expected to feel nothing. This was business, after all. But when Sam took her hand, his calloused palm warm against hers, something unexpected stirred in her chest. Do you, Samuel James Hawkins, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? Mills intoned. I do, Sam said, his voice steady. Do you, Martha Grace Coleman, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? I do. The words came out stronger than she'd expected. Then, by the power vested in me by the territory of Colorado and Almighty God, I pronounce you man and wife. Mills paused, clearly uncomfortable. You may shake hands, I suppose. But Sam surprised everyone, including Martha. He lifted her hand to his lips, brushing a gentleman's kiss across her knuckles. Mrs. Hawkins, he said formally. Mr. Hawkins, she replied, hoping the candlelight hid her blush. They'd just finished signing the register. Mrs. Chen and Pete adding their signatures as witnesses. When the church door burst open, Jake Morrison stood silhouetted against the night, backed by 3 of his men. Well, well, Morrison drawled. Heard there was a wedding. Funny how we didn't get invitations. Sam moved smoothly, positioning himself between Morrison and Martha. Private ceremony. Family only. Family? Morrison's laugh was ugly. A drifter, a half-breed, a Chinese woman, and a broken-down prospector? That's the family Martha chooses. Better than snakes and thieves, Pete shot back, gripping his walking stick tighter. Morrison's hand twitched toward his gun, but Sam's voice cut through the tension like a blade. You pull that iron in a church, Morrison, and you'd better be prepared to use it. Question is, are you ready to meet your maker tonight? The foreman hesitated. Sam Hawkins's reputation had preceded him. A man who'd faced down the Wallace gang didn't bluff. Morrison's eyes shifted, calculating odds. No need for unpleasantness, he said finally. Just wanted to offer congratulations to the happy couple and to deliver a message from Mr. Aldrich. He pulled out an envelope, tossing it onto a pew. He's calling in your father's debts. Martha, seems old Josiah borrowed against future silver production. Payments due in full by week's end. Martha started forward, but Sam caught her arm. We'll review any legitimate claims through proper channels, he said evenly. Now you boys have delivered your message. Time to go. Morrison smiled, cold and mean. Oh, we're going. But this ain't over. Hawkins, you tied yourself to a losing hand. Hope she's worth it. They filed out, spurs jangling in the sacred space. Only when the hoofbeats faded did Martha snatch up the envelope, scanning its contents by candlelight. Lies, she breathed. Papa never borrowed from Aldrich. These documents are forgeries. Can you prove it? Sam asked. Papa kept perfect records. Everything's in his strongbox at the cabin. Martha's hands shook slightly as she folded the false papers. But a territorial judge might not care about proof. Not if Aldrich greases the right palms. Then we'd better make sure we have more than just papers on our side, Sam said grimly. They left the church as a group, Sam insisting on seeing everyone safely home. Mrs. Chen's small house came first, set behind her laundry business. You need anything, you send word, she told Martha fiercely. My William may be gone, but his mother hasn't forgotten what friendship means. Pete's shack was next, perched precariously on a hillside claim he'd worked for 20 years. Got something for you, he said, disappearing inside. He returned with a leather pouch. Wedding present. Martha opened it, gasping at the nuggets within. Pete, I can't. You can and will. The old man interrupted. That's from the claim your papa helped me file proper when Aldrich tried to jump it. Figured I owed him. Now I'm paying the debt to his daughter. As they walked back toward Martha's cabin, now their cabin, she supposed. Sam was quiet. The moon had risen, casting the mountain trail in silver light. You're thinking heavy thoughts, Martha observed, wondering what I've gotten myself into. Sam admitted. This is bigger than just protecting your inheritance. Aldrich has his fingers in everything. The law, the merchants, probably even the stage lines. Fighting him means taking on the whole system. Are you having second thoughts? Sam considered. No, but we need allies. Pete and Mrs. Chen are a start, but two elderly folks won't turn the tide. Who else has Aldrich hurt? Who else might stand with us? Martha thought as they walked. The Spanish families in the valley. Aldrich has been squeezing them out, buying their water rights for pennies. The small ranchers who can't afford his freight rates. The miners who work claims but somehow never see profits. There are many who hate him, but fear has kept them silent. Fear's a powerful thing, Sam agreed. But so is hope. We need to give them something to hope for. They reached the cabin to find it undisturbed, though Sam insisted on checking the perimeter before allowing Martha inside. As she lit the lamps, the reality of their situation settled over them like a heavy blanket. So, Martha said awkwardly, the loft is up that ladder. There are blankets in the chest, and I'll take the bunkhouse for tonight. Sam interrupted gently. We both need time to adjust to this, but I'll be close if there's trouble. Relief and something else, disappointment, flickered through Martha. Of course, that's practical. Sam moved to the door, then paused. Martha, we may have married for necessity, but I want you to know I take my vows seriously. For as long as we're bound, I'll stand by you. Your fights are my fights now, and mine yours. Martha replied softly. Partners. Partners, Sam agreed. He touched his hat brim and stepped into the night. Martha stood alone in her cabin, now legally secured but feeling more uncertain than ever. She'd taken the first step to save her father's legacy. But Morrison's visit proved Aldrich wouldn't accept defeat easily. The real battle was just beginning. She moved to her father's desk, pulling out his strongbox. If Aldrich wanted to fight with forged papers, she'd arm herself with truth. But first, she allowed herself one moment of weakness, touching the finger where a wedding ring should rest. I hope I've made the right choice, Papa, she whispered to the empty room. Outside, Sam settled into the bunkhouse, his guns within easy reach. He'd hired on for what seemed a simple job, protect a woman's inheritance through a marriage of convenience. But nothing in Cedar Ridge was simple, and Sam had a feeling that before this was over, he'd need every skill he'd learned in his wandering years. The mountain nights settled around them, husband and wife in name only, preparing for a war neither had fully anticipated. But tomorrow would bring its own challenges. Tonight, at least, Martha Coleman Hawkins could sleep knowing her land was safe. For now. The first test of their partnership came sooner than expected. 3 days after the wedding, Sam woke to the acrid smell of smoke. He rolled out of his bunk, guns already in hand, and burst from the bunkhouse to see orange flames licking at the corner of Martha's supply shed. "Fire!" he bellowed, racing for the water barrel. Martha appeared in her nightdress and shawl, immediately understanding the danger. The shed held her medicinal supplies, months of careful gathering and preparation. Without a word, they formed a bucket brigade of 2, Sam drawing water from the well while Martha doused the flames. "The roof!" Martha shouted, pointing to where sparks had caught the dried wood shingles. Sam holstered his guns and scrambled up, using a wet blanket to beat out the spreading fire. By the time they'd controlled the blaze, dawn was breaking and half the shed was charred ruins. "Deliberately set," Sam said grimly, examining the scorched ground. Coal oil splashed on the walls. "See the pour pattern?" Martha knelt among the destroyed supplies, salvaging what she could. 3 months of willow bark, gone. All my fever remedies. Her voice caught. "People will suffer for this." "That's the idea," Sam said. "Make you look incompetent. Turn the town against you." He spotted something in the dirt. A distinctive heel print. "Morrison's boots. Man has a worn-down left heel. Walks with a slight roll. Can we prove it? Not in court, but we can send a message of our own." Sam's smile was sharp as a blade. "Get dressed. We're going to town." An hour later, they rode into Cedar Ridge. Martha on her father's steady mare. Sam on the rangy gelding he'd brought to town. Word of the fire had already spread. People whispered behind hands as they passed. Some sympathetic, others clearly wondering if the mountain woman had finally lost control of her property. Their first stop was Morrison's boarding house. Sam dismounted smooth as silk. His duster swept back to reveal both guns. "Wait here," he told Martha. "Like hell," she replied, swinging down from her saddle. Sam almost smiled. "Then stay behind me." They found Morrison at breakfast, surrounded by 3 of his crew. The foreman's eyes widened slightly when Sam kicked open the dining room door, but he recovered quickly. "Hawkins, bit early for social calls." "Not a social call," Sam said. He crossed the room in 3 strides and upended Morrison's table, sending eggs and coffee flying. "That's for the fire." Morrison surged to his feet, hand moving toward his gun, but froze when he found himself staring down the barrel of Sam's Colt. The draw had been too fast to follow. "You got proof?" Morrison snarled. "Got your boot print. Got witnesses who saw you buying coal oil yesterday." Sam cocked the hammer. "Got a wife who lost 3 months of medicine because you're too stupid to cover your tracks. Question is, do I settle this legal or personal?" "You can't just—" one of Morrison's men started. Martha stepped forward. "Yes, he can. See, my husband has a reputation. The Wallace gang learned that in Amarillo. You boys want to test it?" The tension stretched taut until Morrison raised his hands. "No need for gunplay. Can't prove nothing about no fire." "Maybe not," Sam agreed. "But here's what's going to happen. You're going to reach into your pocket, slow, and put $50 on what's left of this table. Compensation for destroyed property." $50? You're out of your— Sam's gun shifted slightly. 60. Morrison's face purpled, but he reached for his wallet. "This ain't over." "No," Sam agreed as Morrison counted out the bills. "But next time you come at us, do it face to face. Sneaking around in the night is coward's work." They left with the money and Morrison's crew's eyes burning into their backs. Outside, Martha released a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. That was— she searched for words. "Necessary." Sam finished. "Aldrich needs to know we won't be pushed, but this is just the beginning. We need to hit back smarter." Their next stop was the general store, where Martha used Morrison's money to replace some of her lost supplies. The proprietor, Thomas Garrett, the same man who'd once courted her before fleeing to California, had returned, his tail between his legs. "Martha," he said, not meeting her eyes. "Heard about your troubles." "Mrs. Hawkins," Sam corrected mildly. "The lady's married now." Garrett flushed. Of course. Mrs. Hawkins. What can I help you with? As Martha selected items, she noticed Garrett's hands shaking. His store, usually well-stocked, showed bare patches on the shelves. Business troubles. Thomas? She asked, not unkindly. Aldrich, Garrett admitted quietly. He's squeezing the freight rates. Can't hardly afford to stock goods anymore. Half the town's in the same boat. Sam and Martha exchanged glances. What if there was another option? Sam asked. Competition for Aldrich's freight monopoly. Garrett's eyes darted nervously. You'd need capital, connections, protection. We might arrange all three, Martha said, if we had the right partners. They left Garrett chewing his lip, clearly torn between fear and opportunity. Their circuit of the town continued, the blacksmith struggling with ore shipment costs, the seamstress whose husband worked Aldrich's mines for starvation wages, the Mexican families whose water rights were being systematically challenged. He's got the whole town in a stranglehold, Martha said as they paused at the well to water the horses. Monopolies are like that, Sam agreed. But they're also vulnerable, control everything, and everything becomes a point of attack. Their conversation was interrupted by a commotion near the saloon. A crowd had gathered, voices raised in anger. Sam and Martha pushed through to find a shocking scene. Mrs. Chen stood surrounded by Morrison's men, her laundry scattered in the dust. Dirty Chinese washing, Morrison was saying loudly. Probably spreading disease. Town councils passed a new ordinance. No foreign laundries within city limits. Mrs. Chen held her ground despite being outnumbered. I've been here 20 years, longer than you. Jake Morrison. Don't matter. Law's the law. Morrison reached for the elderly woman's arm. He never completed the gesture. Sam's hand caught his wrist, applying pressure that drove Morrison to his knees. The lady's not interested in your help, Sam said conversationally. And last I checked, town council needs a quorum to pass ordinances. When exactly did this vote happen? Last night, Morrison gritted out. Emergency session. Funny how emergencies always happen when folks are sleeping, Martha observed, helping Mrs. Chen gather her scattered washing. Who was present? Mayor Aldrich, Doc Morrison, and Banker Hutchins. Someone in the crowd supplied. 3 men, all with business interests in driving out competition, Sam noted, releasing Morrison's wrist. Doesn't sound legal to me. Does it sound legal to you folks? The crowd muttered, discontent rippling through them. Many had family who'd been similarly pushed out over the years. Don't matter what it sounds like, Morrison spat, climbing to his feet. It's done. We'll see about that, Martha said. She raised her voice, addressing the crowd. Town meeting, tonight 7 o'clock. Time we discussed what kind of law we want in Cedar Ridge. The kind that protects all citizens, or the kind that only serves the rich. You can't call a town meeting, Morrison protested. You ain't got the authority. She's a property owner and a married woman, Sam pointed out. According to territorial statute, that gives her full voting rights. Same statute says any dozen property owners can call a meeting. Who here owns property and wants their voice heard? Hands raised throughout the crowd, more than Morrison had expected. The small business owners, the craftsmen, even some of Aldrich's own workers who'd managed to buy tiny plots. 7 o'clock, Martha repeated. Spread the word. As the crowd dispersed, Mrs. Chen clutched Martha's hand. You take big risk for me. You stood witness at my wedding, Martha replied. That makes us family. Sam watched Morrison storm off, no doubt to report to Aldrich. You know they won't let this meeting happen peacefully. I'm counting on it, Martha said. Every time they overplay their hand, more people see their true nature. Papa always said daylight was the best disinfectant. They spent the afternoon preparing, visiting key townspeople, building coalitions. Sam was impressed by Martha's political instincts. She knew exactly who to approach and how. The banker's wife, tired of her husband's corruption. The minister who'd been pressured to preach prosperity gospel. The schoolteacher whose salary had been cut 3 times. As evening approached, they returned to the cabin briefly. Martha disappeared into her room. emerging in her best dress, black bombazine with jet buttons, dignified and severe. "You look like you're going to war," Sam observed. "I am," Martha replied, pinning her hair into a formidable bun. "Just not the kind fought with guns." "Those kinds can be just as dangerous," Sam warned. "Maybe more so. A bullet's honest. It comes straight at you. Politics and money. They attack from the shadows." Martha checked the small derringer she tucked into her sleeve. "Then it's good I have a partner who understands both kinds of warfare." They rode back to town as the sun set, painting the mountains blood red. The meeting hall was already packed, townsfolk flowing in despite, or perhaps because of, the line of Aldrich's men standing outside. "Full house," Sam noted. "That's either very good or very bad." "Both," Martha said. "Change is like birth, painful, messy, and necessary." As they dismounted, Morrison stepped forward. "Meetings canceled. Mayor's orders. Mayor doesn't have that authority." Martha replied calmly. "Section 12 of the town charter, any meeting called by requisite number of property owners must be allowed to proceed." Morrison's hand moved toward his gun. Sam's moved faster. "We've had this dance before." Sam said quietly, "You really want to do it again, in front of all these witnesses?" Morrison looked around at the watching crowd, seeing something that clearly unsettled him. These weren't cowed citizens anymore. They were angry, united, ready for change. "This ain't over," he muttered, stepping aside. "No," Martha agreed, sweeping past him. "It's just beginning." Inside the hall, she took the podium with natural authority. Sam positioned himself where he could watch both the crowd and the doors, ready for whatever Aldrich's response might be. "Citizens of Cedar Ridge," Martha began, her voice carrying to every corner, "we gather tonight to discuss the future of our town, whether we'll be ruled by law or by the whims of wealthy men, whether every citizen has rights or only those who can afford to buy them." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Sam saw hope kindling in tired faces, fear giving way to determination. Martha had lit a spark. The question now was whether they could fan it into a flame before Aldrich found a way to snuff it out. The battle for Cedar Ridge had truly begun. The town meeting had lasted past midnight, voices raised in heated debate about ordinances and rights. But it was what happened 3 days later that truly shifted the balance of power in Cedar Ridge. Sam was checking the morning trap lines when he heard the scream. He ran toward the sound, finding Martha at the edge of town, kneeling beside a small form in the dusty road. A crowd was already gathering, their faces etched with fear and helplessness. "It's the Johnson boy," someone whispered. "The fever took him bad." Indeed, 8-year-old Timothy Johnson lay unconscious, his skin burning hot, breath coming in labored gasps. His mother, Sarah Johnson, clutched at Martha's sleeve. "Please," she sobbed. "Doc Morrison says he can't do nothing more, says the boy's too far gone." Martha's jaw tightened. She'd seen this before, Morrison's convenient failures when it came to those who couldn't pay his inflated fees. "How long has he been like this?" 3 days. Doc gave him laudanum, said to make him comfortable, but laudanum for a fever? Martha's voice was sharp. "That's not treatment, that's surrender." She looked up at Sam. "I need my supplies, the new batch from Garrett's store, and the emergency kit from the root cellar." Sam didn't hesitate. "I'll fetch them." As he turned to go, Morrison himself pushed through the crowd, his medical bag in hand. "What's this? I'm the licensed physician here." "This woman has no right—" "This woman," Mayor Aldrich's smooth voice cut through the murmur, "is practicing medicine without proper certification. That's a territorial offense." He'd appeared like a vulture scenting death, flanked by 2 deputies. "Step away from the boy, Mrs. Hawkins." Martha didn't move. "Would you rather I let him die to satisfy your paperwork?" "The law is the law," Aldrich replied coldly. "Doctor, Morrison is the recognized medical authority." "Doctor, Morrison is a quack and a murderer." Martha shot back, causing gasps throughout the crowd. "How many have died under his care? How many could have lived if they'd had real treatment instead of sugar water and false hope?" Morrison's face purpled. "How dare you!" He was interrupted by Sarah Johnson falling to her knees before the mayor. "Please, Mr. Aldrich, please let her try. My boy is dying." "What harm can it do?" Aldrich's smile was thin. "The harm, Mrs. Johnson, is to the very fabric of our society. We have laws, procedures. If we allow every folk healer and charlatan to practice their craft, then children live instead of die." Sam's voice came from behind. He'd returned with Martha's supplies, and something in his stance suggested anyone trying to take them would face consequences. Interesting priority. Mayor. The crowd stirred uneasily. Many had lost loved ones to Morrison's incompetence, had watched him shrug off deaths while still demanding payment. "Let her try," someone called out. Then another voice joined, and another, until it became a chant. "Let her try! Let her try!" Aldrich's deputies looked nervous. These weren't hardened gunmen, just local boys trying to make a wage. They didn't sign up to stand between a dying child and potential salvation. "You do this," Aldrich warned Martha, raising his voice over the crowd. "And I'll have you arrested. You'll stand trial for practicing medicine without a license." Martha was already examining the boy, her hands gentle but sure. "Then arrest me after I save his life." She looked up at the crowd. "I need clean water, boiled and cooled, white cloths, and someone to help me move him to shade." The townspeople scattered to fulfill her requests, leaving Aldrich and Morrison standing impotently as Martha worked. She checked the boy's eyes, felt the pulse at his throat, examined his fingernails and tongue. "Not scarlet fever," she muttered, more to herself than anyone. "Not typhoid either. The rash pattern is wrong. And the fever cycle." Her eyes widened. "Mrs. Johnson, has Timothy been playing near the old mine shafts?" Sarah nodded frantically. "Him and the other boys. They go exploring sometimes. I tell them not to, but—" "Mine fever," Martha announced. "From the bad air in the abandoned shafts. Doc Morrison, what treatment did you prescribe for mine fever?" Morrison shifted uncomfortably. The symptoms presented as common fever." "Because you never asked the right questions," Martha said curtly. "Sam, I need the yellow powder in the small glass vial and the willow bark tincture." As she worked, mixing medicines with practiced efficiency, she kept up a running commentary. "Mine fever attacks the lungs first, then the blood. The yellow powder, sulfur compound, helps clear the bad air from his system. The willow bark reduces fever without suppressing the body's fight." She had them prop Timothy up, spooning the medicine between his blue-tinged lips. The crowd held its breath, watching as she worked with a combination of traditional remedies and techniques none had seen before. "Where did you learn this?" someone asked. "My father studied with doctors back east before the war," Martha replied, never taking her attention from her patient. "He learned their science, then combined it with what the Cherokee healers taught him, and what he discovered himself in these mountains. Knowledge doesn't care about the color of the hand that holds it, or the certificates on the wall." An hour passed. The sun climbed higher. Timothy's breathing remained labored, and Martha's face grew tight with concentration. She applied poultices to his chest, had them bathe his fevered skin, adjusted his position to help his lungs clear. Then, just as some in the crowd began to mutter that perhaps Morrison had been right, Timothy's eyes fluttered open. His breathing, while still rough, came easier. The blue tinge faded from his lips. "Mama," he whispered. Sarah Johnson burst into tears, clutching her son. The crowd erupted in celebration, but Martha was already checking his vitals again. "He's not out of danger yet," she warned. "He needs careful nursing for the next 3 days. I'll write down instructions." "You'll do no such thing," Aldrich snarled. He'd watched his authority crumble with each passing minute of Martha's successful treatment. "Deputies, arrest this woman for practicing medicine without a license." The 2 young deputies stepped forward reluctantly, but found their way blocked by Sam Hawkins. "Boys," he said conversationally, "you're about to make a choice that'll follow you the rest of your lives. You arrest the woman who just saved a child's life, in front of his mother and all these witnesses, and see how this town treats you after." The deputies hesitated, looking between Sam's steady gaze and their employer's furious face. "More to the point," Martha said, standing and brushing dust from her skirts. "Arrest me for what? I gave a child herbal tea and sulfur, both available at any general store. I shared knowledge freely given, applied common sense and traditional remedies. Show me the law that makes any of that illegal." "You claim to be treating mind fever." Morrison blustered. "Made a medical diagnosis. I made an observation based on symptoms and circumstances," Martha corrected. "Any mother might do the same. Or are we arresting mothers now for tending their sick children?" The crowd's mood was shifting dangerously. These were working people who'd suffered under Aldrich's thumb for too long. Seeing one of their own saved when Morrison had given up hope, that changed things. "Perhaps," Sam suggested, his hand resting casually on his gun, "we should let the territorial judge decide. When does Judge Carter ride through next?" "Next month," someone supplied. "Then I'll be happy to appear before him," Martha said. "In the meantime, I have other patients to tend, unless the mayor wants more children to die for the sake of his pride." It was a masterful stroke. Aldrich was trapped, push the arrest and look like a child killer, or back down and lose face. His eyes promised retribution, but he jerked his head at the deputies. "We'll let the judge decide," he said coldly. "But mark my words, Mrs. Hawkins, your days of playing doctor are numbered." He stalked off, Morrison trailing behind, but the damage was done. The crowd pressed close, voices calling out, "My daughter's had a cough for weeks. Mrs. Hawkins, could you look at her? My husband's back pains him something terrible. Is it true you have something for the birthing pains?" Martha looked at Sam, overwhelmed. He stepped close, speaking low in her ear. "You've opened a door. Question is, can you handle what comes through it?" She straightened her spine. "These people need help, real help, not Morrison's quackery. Then we'd better make sure you're still free to give it when the judge arrives." Sam said, "Because Aldrich won't take this defeat lightly," as Martha began organizing the impromptu clinic that had formed around her. Sam noticed other things changing. Men who'd kept their heads down were standing straighter. Women who'd accepted their lot were whispering together. The boy Martha had saved was breathing easier, and with each breath, the town's fear of Aldrich grew a little weaker. But Sam also saw Morrison conferring with rough-looking men near the saloon. Saw Aldrich's cold eyes calculating from his office window. The battle was won, but the war was escalating. "You did good today," he told Martha as she finally took a moment to breathe. "I did what Papa trained me for," she replied. "But you're right. This changes things. Aldrich can't let it stand." "No," Sam agreed, watching the sun begin its descent toward the mountains. "He can't, so we'd better be ready for whatever comes next." As if in answer to his words, a rider appeared on the horizon, spurring hard toward town. Sam's hand found his gun as he recognized one of Aldrich's men from the territorial capital. "Trouble?" Martha asked, following his gaze. "Maybe, or maybe opportunity." Sam studied the rider's urgency. "Either way, I'd say the game just changed again." The rider thundered into town, heading straight for Aldrich's office. Whatever news he carried, Sam was certain of one thing: the quiet war for Cedar Ridge was about to get a lot louder. The rider's news spread through Cedar Ridge like wildfire. Judge Carter was coming early, would arrive within the week. More surprisingly, he was bringing a federal marshal with him. Something about investigating irregularities in territorial land claims. "This changes everything," Martha said that evening as she and Sam reviewed her father's papers by lamplight. "Aldrich must be scrambling to cover his tracks." Sam studied the documents spread across the table. Deeds, contracts, receipts, all meticulously kept in Josiah Coleman's precise hand. Your father was thorough. Every transaction documented. Every claim properly filed. But this, he held up a yellowed receipt. "This is interesting." Martha leaned closer, her shoulder brushing his. "The original land purchase. Papa bought it from the Garrison estate, paid the back taxes. But look at the witness signature. Sam pointed. Judge Theodore Carter. Same judge who's writing in. Your father had dealings with him before. Hope flared in Martha's eyes. You think he'll remember? It's been 15 years. Judges remember paperwork. Sam said, It's their religion. Question is, will he care about justice? Or has Aldrich already reached him? A knock at the door interrupted them. Sam's hand went to his gun as he moved to answer, but it was only Mrs. Chen, accompanied by Pete Winters and, surprisingly, Thomas Garrett. We need to talk, Garrett said without preamble, about what happens when the judge arrives. They gathered around the table. An unlikely war council, Mrs. Chen had brought tea, Pete had his flask of whiskey, and Garrett carried a ledger that his hands couldn't stop fidgeting with. Aldrich has been busy. Garrett began. He's calling in debts all over town, offering to forgive them for anyone who'll testify against Martha. Says she's been practicing witchcraft, not medicine. Witchcraft? Martha's voice was incredulous. In 1871. Don't need to prove it, Pete said grimly. Just need enough folks to swear they seen strange things. In territorial court, accusations can be enough to seize property pending investigation. He's also spreading money around. Mrs. Chen added. My neighbor, Mrs. Willis, says Morrison offered her $50 to swear she saw Martha dancing naked under the moon, consorting with spirits. Sam's expression darkened. Dancing naked? Of course, can't just accuse her of helping people. Has to make it salacious. What did Mrs. Willis say? Martha asked. Mrs. Chen smiled slightly. She took the money, then came to me. She wants to testify. All right, about Morrison's bribery. That's something, Sam mused. But we need more. Garrett, what's in that ledger you're clutching? The shopkeeper hesitated, then opened the book. Records of every suspicious transaction Aldrich has pushed through my store. Forged receipts. Goods that went to his properties but were charged to the town. Payments for services never rendered. He looked up miserably. I kept track, even though I was too cowardly to do anything about it. You're doing something now, Martha said gently. That's what matters. There's more. Garrett continued. I wasn't really in California. Aldrich had me held in a cabin up in the hills, said he'd burn my store with my family inside if I didn't stay away from you. But his men got careless, started drinking and talking. I heard things. Sam leaned forward. What kind of things? About your father, Martha, about the mercury poisoning. Morrison didn't come up with that alone. There's a chemist in Denver, man named Crawley, who specializes in subtle solutions. Aldrich hired him specifically for your father. Martha's hands clenched into fists. Can you prove it? I heard them laughing about it, saying how the old man never suspected his medicine was killing him. Garrett's voice dropped. They mentioned others too, the Vasquez family that used to own the water rights. Old man Thompson, who had the claims near yours. All died of mysterious ailments after crossing Aldrich. Murder? Pete said flatly. That's what we're talking about. Multiple murders. But hearsay isn't proof, Sam pointed out. We need... He was cut off by the sound of breaking glass. A rock sailed through the window, wrapped in paper. Sam moved swiftly, pulling Martha down as more rocks followed, accompanied by shouts from outside. Witch! Murderer! Negro trash! Sam peered through the broken window. Morrison and about 10 men, drunk by the look of them. They're trying to provoke us, Martha said. If you shoot, they'll claim self-defense. Then we don't shoot, Sam decided. Pete, you still carry that scattergun? The old prospector grinned, producing a sawed-off shotgun from under his coat. Rock salt loads. Stings like hell but won't kill nobody. Perfect. Garrett, Chen, stay with Martha. Pete, you and I are going to have a conversation with our visitors. They slipped out the back, circling through the darkness. The mob was focused on the front of the cabin, hurling insults and stones, working themselves toward worse violence. Morrison stood at the back, directing the show. Sam appeared behind him like a ghost. "Evening, Morrison." Morrison spun, reaching for his gun, but froze when he felt Pete's shotgun barrel against his ribs. "Call them off," Sam said quietly. "Now. Or what? You'll murder me. Add another crime to your wife's list." "No," Sam replied. "But Pete here might accidentally discharge that scattergun. Rock salt in the backside makes riding real uncomfortable. Probably have to stand in your stirrups all the way back to town. Embarrassing. A tough man like you mincing along like that." Morrison's face went red, but the shotgun pressed harder. "All right, boys," he called. "We've made our point. Let's go." The mob grumbled but began dispersing. As Morrison turned to leave, Sam caught his arm. "Tell Aldrich something for me. Every move he makes, we document. Every bribe, every threat, every lie. When the judge comes, we'll be ready." Morrison jerked free. "You think one judge changes anything? Aldrich owns half the territory. You're fighting the whole system. Then maybe it's time the system changed." Sam replied. After the mob left, they regrouped in the cabin. Martha swept up glass while Mrs. Chen brewed more tea. The rock-wrapped message was a crude drawing of a gallows with Martha's name underneath. "Subtle," Martha commented dryly. "We need protection." Garrett said, "They'll be back, and worse next time." "Already handled," Sam said. "Pete, you still know those Mexican vaqueros from the Sandoval Ranch?" "Jose and his boys? Sure. They got no love for Aldrich after he stole their water. See if they'll ride night watch. I'll pay standard wages. We'll all contribute." "Mrs. Chen said firmly, "This is our fight too." As the evening wore on, more people arrived. The Johnson family, bringing food and their gratitude. Other patients Martha had helped over the years. By midnight, the cabin had become an impromptu headquarters for what Sam privately thought of as the Cedar Ridge Rebellion. "We need to be strategic," Martha addressed the group. "When Judge Carter arrives, we present our case properly, not as a mob, but as citizens seeking justice under law." "And if the law fails?" someone asked. Martha's eyes met Sam's across the room. "Then we use other options. But first, we try the legal path. My father believed in the law, even when it failed him. We honor that." After everyone left, Sam and Martha were alone with the night and the broken window. She found him on the porch, keeping watch. "You could have killed Morrison tonight," she observed, settling beside him. "Could have, didn't need to." Sam glanced at her. "You disapprove?" "No, I'm impressed. Most men would have answered violence with violence. I've done that. It solves the immediate problem but creates 10 more. He was quiet for a moment. "Your way, healing, building community, fighting with laws and papers. It's harder but maybe more lasting." Martha studied his profile in the moonlight. "We make a good team." "We do." Sam turned to her. "Martha, this marriage, I know it started as business, but..." She placed a finger on his lips. "Not tonight. We have too much ahead of us to complicate things with feelings. After the judge comes, after we know if we've won or lost, then we can talk about what this is becoming." Sam caught her hand, pressing a kiss to her palm. "After the judge, then..." They sat in companionable silence, watching the stars wheel overhead. In the distance, coyotes howled, and the mountains stood eternal and indifferent to human struggles. But in the cabin behind them, plans were forming, alliances strengthening. "My father used to say that mountains were shaped by pressure," Martha said softly. "Slow, steady pressure over time. That's how we'll win this. Not with gunfire, but with persistence." "And if Aldrich brings gunfire anyway?" Martha's smile was sharp in the darkness. "Then it's good I married a man who knows how to use one. But Sam, let's make sure it doesn't come to that." "Yes, ma'am," Sam replied, and meant it. He was finding that his respect for this remarkable woman grew with each passing day. What had started as a business arrangement was becoming something neither had expected. But first, they had a judge to convince and a town to save. Everything else, including the growing feelings between them, would have to wait. The week until Judge Carter's arrival would test them all. But tonight, with their allies gathered and their purpose clear, victory seemed possible. The mountain woman and the cowboy had started something that couldn't be stopped with rocks or threats. Change was coming to Cedar Ridge, one way or another. Judge Theodore Carter arrived in Cedar Ridge on a Thursday morning, the federal marshal beside him and a small military escort trailing behind. The whole town turned out to watch, sensing that this day would determine their future. Carter was older than Martha had expected, his face carved by decades of frontier justice. He set up court in the town hall, refusing Aldrich's offer of hospitality, and instead taking rooms at the boarding house run by the widow Tompkins, a woman known for her fierce independence and sharp tongue. "Smart choice," Sam observed as they prepared for the hearing. "Mrs. Tompkins can't be bought or bullied." Martha adjusted her best dress, the black bombazine she'd worn to marry Sam. It seemed fitting, somehow. "Do I look respectable enough to face down accusations of witchcraft?" "You look like a woman who saves lives." Sam replied, "That's better than respectable." The courtroom was packed. Aldrich had claimed the prosecutor's table, flanked by Morrison and Doc Morrison. Their side bristled with paid witnesses and stacks of documents. Martha and Sam sat at the defendant's table with Thomas Garrett as their witness, and a smaller but carefully organized collection of papers. Judge Carter took his seat, his gavel sharp in the morning air. "This court is now in session. We're here to address multiple matters: the validity of the marriage between Martha Coleman and Samuel Hawkins, accusations of illegal medical practice, and claims of fraud regarding the Coleman land holdings." He peered over his spectacles. "Mayor Aldrich, as the complainant, you may begin." Aldrich rose smoothly. "Your Honor, we're here to expose a conspiracy. This woman," he pointed at Martha, "has perpetrated multiple frauds upon our community. First, she entrapped a drifter into a sham marriage to circumvent legitimate inheritance laws. Second, she practices medicine without license, endangering lives with her folk remedies and heathen practices. Third, we have evidence that her father's land claims were themselves fraudulent, obtained through deception. Those are serious accusations," Judge Carter said. "Present your evidence." What followed was a parade of paid witnesses. Mrs. Willis took the stand, but instead of supporting Aldrich, she broke down and confessed about the bribe Morrison had offered. Aldrich's face darkened, but he pressed on. Other witnesses claimed to have seen Martha performing unnatural acts and consorting with dark forces. "And what exactly did you see?" Judge Carter asked one nervous man. "Well, she was gathering plants by moonlight, Your Honor, talking to them like they was people." "Talking to plants constitutes witchcraft now." The judge's tone was dry. "Half the farmers in the territory would hang. Next witness." Doc Morrison took the stand, puffing himself up importantly. "This woman practices medicine without proper training or certification. She endangers lives with her amateur interventions." "I see," Judge Carter said. "And what is your medical training? Doctor?" Morrison shifted. "I studied under Dr. Josiah Brennan in Missouri." "For how long?" 6 months, Your Honor, 6 months." Carter made a note. "And Mrs. Hawkins, what is your training?" Martha stood. 15 years studying under my father, who trained at the Freedmen's Medical College before the war. Additionally, I've studied every medical text I could acquire and learned traditional healing from Cherokee practitioners." "Freedmen's College?" Morrison scoffed. "That's not real medical training." "That's enough." Carter cut him off. "I'll determine what constitutes adequate training. Continue." "Mayor Aldrich." Aldrich played his final card. "Your Honor, we have evidence that Josiah Coleman's original land claim was fraudulent. The previous owner, Garrison, never properly signed the deed. This woman's father essentially stole the land through legal trickery." "That's a lie," Martha said, standing despite Sam's restraining hand. "You'll have your turn. Mrs. Hawkins." Judge Carter said, But Mayor, that's a serious charge. Do you have proof? Aldrich produced a document. The original deed. Your Honor, you'll note the signature appears forced, possibly forged. Carter examined the paper, then looked up with an unreadable expression. I see. Very well. Defense, you may present your case. Sam stood. Your Honor, we'll address each charge in turn. First, regarding the marriage. I entered into it freely. Yes, it began as a practical arrangement, but that describes half the marriages on the frontier. What matters is it's legal and binding. Can you prove there's genuine intention to maintain this marriage? Carter asked. Sam glanced at Martha. With respect, Your Honor, the law doesn't require love, only consent. But if you need proof of commitment, I've stood by my wife against threats, violence, and intimidation. I'd say that demonstrates intention. Fair point. Continue. Regarding the medical practice. Sam went on. We have witnesses to Mrs. Hawkins's successful treatments. Mrs. Johnson? Sarah Johnson took the stand. Timothy beside her. The boy who'd been dying just days ago now stood straight and clear-eyed. She saved my son, Sarah said simply. Doc Morrison had given up. Said to prepare for burial. Martha, Mrs. Hawkins, she knew what was wrong and how to fix it. That's not witchcraft. That's knowledge. More witnesses followed. People Martha had helped over the years. Families Doc Morrison had failed. The tide of testimony painted a clear picture. A community failed by official medicine and saved by traditional knowledge. Now, Sam said, regarding the land claims, Thomas Garrett has information about systematic fraud, but not by Josiah Coleman. Garrett took the stand nervously, but found his courage as he spoke. He detailed Aldrich's schemes, the forced transactions, the mysterious deaths. He produced his ledger, documenting years of corruption. Hearsay, Aldrich objected. Perhaps, Carter agreed. But it establishes a pattern. Continue. Martha stood for the final argument. Your Honor, you asked about the garrison deed. May I see it? Carter handed her the document. Martha studied it, then smiled. Your Honor, do you remember signing as witness to this transaction? The courtroom went silent. Carter leaned forward. I've witnessed many documents, Mrs. Hawkins. Then you'll remember that Josiah Coleman saved your life that day. Martha's voice carried clearly. You were traveling to Denver, took ill with fever. The local doctor, not Morrison, his predecessor, had no idea what to do. My father was working at the Garrison Ranch, recognized the symptoms of typhoid. He treated you with the same traditional remedies I use now. Carter's eyes widened slightly with memory. You recovered, Martha continued. And when my father went to pay the back taxes on the Garrison property, completely legally, you insisted on witnessing the deed. You said... She paused, consulting a letter from her father's papers. A man who saves lives deserves to build a life. I remember, Carter said quietly. Josiah Coleman, a good man. Whom Aldrich had poisoned with mercury, Martha said, producing the vial. We have testimony from men who heard Aldrich's people discussing it. My father died slowly, horribly, so men like Aldrich could steal what he'd built. The courtroom erupted. Aldrich jumped to his feet. Lies! Your Honor, this is slander. Is it? A new voice came from the back. A thin man in city clothes stood. I'm Harold Crawley, chemist from Denver. I came as soon as I heard there was a federal investigation. He walked forward, hands shaking. I can't live with it anymore. Aldrich hired me to create slow-acting poisons. Coleman wasn't the first or the last. The federal marshal stood. Mr. Crawley, you're saying you have direct knowledge of murder for hire. I have records, Crawley said. Names, dates, formulations. I'll testify in exchange for consideration. Aldrich went white. Your Honor, Judge Carter's gavel came down hard. Marshal, take Mayor Aldrich and Dr. Morrison into custody pending federal investigation. As for the matters before this court, the marriage between Martha Coleman Hawkins and Samuel Hawkins is valid and binding. The Coleman land holdings are legitimate, and regarding medical practice, he paused, looking at Martha. Territorial law is unclear on traditional healing versus licensed medicine, but I find no evidence of harm, only healing, until the territory clarifies its statutes. Mrs. Hawkins is free to continue helping those who seek her care. Another gavel strike. Court dismissed. The courtroom exploded into chaos. Aldrich was dragged out protesting. Morrison babbling about his innocence, but at the defendant's table. Martha stood frozen, overwhelmed by the sudden victory. "It's over," she whispered. "The legal part, maybe," Sam said, watching Aldrich's remaining men scatter. "But there'll be repercussions. Men like him don't go down easy." Judge Carter approached them. "Mrs. Hawkins, your father was indeed a good man. I'm sorry I couldn't protect him from men like Aldrich. You've protected his legacy." Martha replied, "That's what matters." Carter turned to Sam. "You've chosen a remarkable woman. Mr. Hawkins, see that you deserve her." As the judge left, Martha felt the weight of weeks lifting from her shoulders. Around them, townspeople celebrated, not just for her victory, but for their own liberation from Aldrich's rule. "What now?" Sam asked. Martha looked at her husband, really looked at him. This man who'd started as a hired gun but became a true partner. Now we build something better. A town where justice means something, where people are judged by their actions, not their color or wealth. That's a big dream. I married a man who makes big dreams possible. Martha said. Sam smiled, offering her his arm. "Then let's go home. Mrs. Hawkins, we have work to do." They left the courthouse together, walking through streets already brighter for Aldrich's absence. The mountain woman who'd shocked the town with her desperate proposition had won more than her land. She'd won her community's freedom, but as Sam had warned, this was only the beginning. There would be more challenges, more battles. For now, though, they had this moment. Justice served, truth revealed, and a future suddenly full of possibilities. The sun was setting over the mountains as they reached the cabin, painting the peaks gold and crimson. Martha paused, looking back at the town below. "Papa?" she whispered to the wind. "We did it." Sam's hand found hers, warm and steady. Together, they went inside to plan for tomorrow. 6 months after the trial, Cedar Ridge had transformed, where Aldrich's freight monopoly once strangled commerce. A cooperative led by Thomas Garrett and the Sandoval family now offered fair rates. The abandoned mayor's mansion had become a school, with Martha teaching reading to anyone who wanted to learn. Most surprisingly, a new medical clinic stood on Main Street, not competing with Martha's healing practice, but complementing it. The clinic's proprietor, Dr. Elizabeth Hartley, had arrived from Chicago 3 months prior, drawn by newspaper accounts of the town that challenged a corrupt system. She and Martha had circled each other warily at first, like cats assessing territory, until young Timothy Johnson broke his arm falling from a tree. "I can set the bone, Doctor," Hartley had said, "and I can prepare willow bark for the pain and comfrey for healing." Martha had replied. They'd worked together, modern medicine and traditional knowledge combining seamlessly. By the time Timothy's arm was splinted and his pain eased, a partnership had been born. Sam found Martha in their expanded garden one morning, teaching a group of women about medicinal plants. The mountain woman, who'd once worked alone, now had eager students, including several Mexican and Chinese families who shared their own healing traditions. "Letter from the territorial governor," Sam said, holding up an official envelope. "Seems word of our experiment in cooperative justice has reached Denver." Martha wiped her hands on her apron, leaving dirt smudges. "Good news or bad? See for yourself?" He handed her the letter. She read, her eyes widening. "They want me to address the Territorial Medical Board about integrating traditional healing with licensed medicine. Will you go?" Martha looked around at her students, at the thriving garden, at the town below where former enemies now worked together. "We'll go," she corrected. "Partners, remember?" Sam smiled. "Always." That evening, they hosted dinner for their extended family. for that's what their alliance had become. Pete Winters held court with prospecting stories while Mrs. Chen and Mrs. Sandoval compared recipes. Dr. Hartley debated treatment methods with Martha as naturally as old friends. Hard to believe this all started with you ordering me to your bed in the town square, Sam murmured to Martha as they served coffee. She laughed, the sound rich and warm. Desperate times, though I notice you haven't complained about the arrangement. No, Sam agreed, catching her hand. No complaints at all. Their relationship had evolved naturally over the months. The business arrangement had given way to genuine partnership, then friendship, then something deeper. They'd moved Sam's things from the bunkhouse to the cabin proper after the first snow, when pretending their marriage was purely practical had become absurd. Martha, Doctor, Hartley called out. Tell them about the letter from Boston. Martha flushed. It's nothing certain. The Harvard Medical School wants to study her treatment methods. Doctor, Hartley announced proudly, specifically how she identified and cured mind fever when traditional doctors couldn't. The table erupted in congratulations. Pete pounded his fist in approval. Sending coffee sloshing. About time them Eastern folks recognized what we got here. It's just a correspondence. Martha protested. They want me to document my methods, share the knowledge, which is how change happens. Sam interrupted. One letter, one student, one saved life at a time. Later, as their guests departed and they cleaned up together, Martha grew thoughtful. Do you ever regret it? Getting tangled up in my problems? You could have been in California by now. Or Texas. Anywhere but here washing dishes in a cabin in Colorado. Sam set down his dish rag, turning her to face him. Martha Coleman Hawkins, you're the smartest woman I know, but sometimes you're remarkably dense. I beg your pardon? I've been a lot of places. Faced down outlaws, negotiated range wars, seen every kind of trouble the frontier offers, but I've never found anything worth staying for. Until you. Martha's breath caught. Sam? That first day, when you marched up and announced I was sleeping with you, he grinned at her shocked laugh. I saw something in your eyes, not just desperation, fire, purpose, the kind of strength that builds communities and changes worlds. And now? Martha asked softly. Now I see my wife, my partner, the woman who saved this town and is probably going to save a whole lot more before she's done. He cupped her face gently. I love you, Martha. Not because I have to, not because a judge says we're married, but because I can't imagine being anywhere else but by your side. Martha's eyes shimmered with tears. I love you too. I think I have since you kissed my hand at our wedding, when you could have just shaken it like the Reverend suggested. Well, Sam said, pulling her close, I always believed in doing things properly. Their kiss was interrupted by a knock at the door. Sam sighed, reaching for his gun out of habit, though threats had been rare since Aldrich's arrest. A young man stood on their porch, hat in hand, travel-stained and nervous. Mrs. Hawkins, I'm James Morrison, Doc Morrison's nephew from back east. Martha and Sam exchanged wary glances. If you're here about your uncle... No, ma'am, I mean, yes, but not like you think. The young man swallowed hard. I'm a real doctor, graduated from Pennsylvania Medical College. I want to learn from you. Learn from me? Martha's voice was carefully neutral. I've been reading the newspaper accounts. A woman who combines traditional knowledge with modern science, who saves lives other doctors abandon? James met her eyes earnestly. That's the kind of medicine I want to practice, if you'll have me as a student. Sam watched his wife process this unexpected development. The nephew of her enemy, coming to learn. It was a test of everything they'd built. Can you set aside what you think you know? Martha asked finally. Can you respect knowledge that doesn't come from universities? Can you see patients as people, not just symptoms? I can try, James said honestly. Will you teach me? Martha looked at Sam, who nodded slightly. We start at dawn, she told James. Doctor, Hartley runs the clinic. She'll find you lodging. And James, your first lesson is this. Healing isn't about who has the most certificates on their wall. It's about serving with humility and compassion. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. As the young man hurried off, Sam chuckled. You're building a medical school one student at a time. Is that so wrong? Martha challenged. No, Sam said, wrapping his arms around her from behind as they stood in their doorway. It's perfect, just like you. They watched the lights of Cedar Ridge twinkle below, a town transformed by courage and cooperation. The silver mine operated as a collective now, profits shared among workers. The school taught all children, regardless of race or wealth. The clinic and Martha's practice served anyone in need. Papa would be proud, Martha said softly. He is proud. Sam corrected. Somewhere, Josiah Coleman is looking down at his daughter and knowing every sacrifice was worth it. As if in answer, a shooting star streaked across the mountain sky. Martha made a wish. Though everything she'd wanted had already come true. She'd saved her father's legacy, found justice for his murder, discovered love she hadn't dared hope for, and built a community that would last. What did you wish for? Sam asked. Martha turned in his arms, smiling up at the man who'd started as a desperate gambit and became her heart's home. The future, she said simply. For our children to grow up in a world where they're judged by their character, not their color. For medicine that serves all people. For justice that doesn't depend on wealth. Big wishes, Sam observed. I'm a big dreamer, Martha replied. But I married a man who helps make dreams real. They went inside together, closing the door on the night. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The trip to Denver, the medical board meeting, James Morrison's training, and 1,000 daily tasks of building a better world. But tonight, the mountain woman and her cowboy were home. Their love story written not in fairy tale terms, but in the solid reality of partnership, respect, and shared purpose. They'd started with a desperate proposition in a dusty plaza and built something that would echo through generations. In the bedroom that had once been just Martha's, Sam noticed something new on the dresser, a silver frame holding their wedding certificate. Sentimental? He teased. Historical document, Martha corrected, then smiled. And yes, sentimental. It marks the day everything changed. The day you got yourself a husband. Sam agreed. The day I got myself a partner, Martha said. The husband part just turned out to be a wonderful bonus. As they prepared for bed, the lamp casting golden light on their faces, Sam remembered that first day, Martha's bold declaration. The crowd's laughter, the desperation and determination in her eyes. You know, he said, for a business arrangement, this has worked out pretty well. Martha laughed, the sound filling their home with joy. The best business I ever conducted. And to think, Sam said, pulling her close, it all started because you needed someone in your bed. Samuel Hawkins, Martha protested, laughing harder. That's not what He silenced her with a kiss. And as the lamp dimmed and the night deepened, the cabin on the mountain stood as testament to what two people could build together when they chose courage over fear, love over prejudice, and partnership over solitude. The stars wheeled overhead. The mountains stood eternal. And in Cedar Ridge, a town reborn through one woman's desperate gamble, all was well. Thank you all for listening to this Wild West love story. Where are you tuning in from today? I'd love to hear from listeners around the world in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to From Wild West channel and share your thoughts about Martha and Sam's journey. Did their story of courage, justice, and unexpected love touch your heart as it did mine? Let me know in the comments.